Hello, and welcome to the 404 Media Podcast, where we bring you unparalleled access to hidden worlds, both online and IRL. 404 Media is a journalist-founded company and needs your support to subscribe. Go to 404media.co. As well as bonus content every single week, subscribers also get access to additional episodes where we respond to their best comments. Gain access to that content at 404media.co. I'm your host, Joseph, and with me, as always, are 404 Media co-founders Sam Cole.
Hello.
Emmanuel Mayberg.
Hello.
And Jason Kebler.
Hello.
All right. It was a crazy week, or should I say crazy Friday, where I feel like we all woke up and the world was somewhat on fire. Do people remember when they
I feel like most people think you're talking about the president.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah.
You could have said that for basically any day of the last 2 weeks and it would have been true. But for us, right. The world was different on Friday.
I'm not referring to the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. I'm not referring to presidential hopeful Joe Biden stepping out. I'm referring to a faulty update in a piece of security software knocking out all of these Windows computers around the world. I mean, the way I found out was that I woke up and I saw a tweet thread from Troy Hunt, who is the maintainer of Have I Been Pwned. He's done that for years, like a very valuable public service. And he was tweeting about all these Windows machines have stopped working, and it quickly became apparent that it was due to this CrowdStrike update, which had caused all these issues. Just before we continue that, I guess I'll just define what CrowdStrike is. It's a piece of software, you can call it an agent, and one of its products is that it will look for signs of compromise. I mean, it's not really like an antivirus specifically, it's a little bit broader than that, but a super popular piece of software across all sorts of enterprises. So CrowdStrike pushes some sort of update, which happens constantly all the time. It has to look for new signs of compromise and new indicators of attack. But something was wrong with that update, and it caused all of these Windows machines to blue screen of death. Jason, I feel like you had a better handle on sort of the immediate impact. Like, what industries were sort of impacted by all of this?
Well, I'm on the West Coast, and this happened like Australia time, so I feel like I definitely woke up. I wake up early, but I woke up and I was like, okay, I've missed something very big. I think airlines, like flights, were definitely the biggest one, and then Starbucks, which I believe you possibly determined this by going to Starbucks. Is that true?
Well,
or
No. It was Sam sent me a screenshot of what was it, Sam? Was it a tweet or was it your own screenshot of Starbucks not being operational or something?
It was like the mobile order system was down and people were complaining that they couldn't place mobile orders to pick up. So they had to drag their asses into the Starbucks physical location in person, stand in line. Very old school.
That's hell on earth. I feel like we should have led with that.
Really chaotic, yeah.
Well, really chaos. Emmanuel was the one who's actually impacted.
Yeah, you couldn't surveil his baby.
What happened with you, Emmanuel?
That's true. So I don't want to name the app, but there's a very popular application that I think most daycares use at this point. And it's very smart, a little bit of a tangent, but if you can imagine, younger parents, millennial parents are very obsessed with gathering data about their baby and knowing constantly what's happening with them. And what a lot of daycares have wisely done is implement this system where they will take pictures and document whenever they change a diaper or feed the baby. And rather than you calling the daycare and harassing them for information, they just give you a constant feed of what is happening through this app. Some of them I think also have like video feeds that you can check. I don't have that. I think that's a bit much. But it's very nice to just like check your phone and be like, oh, he ate. Here's a picture of him. He's cute. Blah blah blah. And that was down. Yeah.
And what does that mean? It being down, that you just like couldn't log in or something?
Yeah, I mean the app didn't work. You didn't get the updates. They sent us a text and we're like, hey, the baby's okay, but you're not getting like your constant updates today because the system is down.
Right,
Another thing
right.
that happened,
It's like
which
Peloton fitness tracking for your baby.
Exactly. Another thing that happened that was totally unrelated to CrowdStrike, but happened at the same time, was I was trying to get court documents from LA County's court, and their court website, like all their documents were down. They have a separate system. And I was like, oh, they must have been affected by CrowdStrike. And it turns out later, like, no, they had just been ransomwared. So obviously, like, we've been dancing around a little bit about specifically what happened here. But I think in the early moments, people were really worried that this was a cyber attack of some sort. And then there was kind of like the jokes and memes about a faulty software update is kind of indecipherable from a cyber attack in some ways.
I mean, you had WannaCry, which was the piece of ransomware used by North Korean hackers, which took advantage of a leaked NSA exploit, which was presumably leaked by somebody connected to Russian intelligence. You had that. And then you also had NotPetya, which is a piece of ransomware that was used in attacks primarily on Ukraine, and then it spread, right? And those are two massive cyber attacks. WannaCry impacted UK hospitals especially, and then, as I said, NotPetya was especially Ukraine. Those were, in the eyes of some insurance companies, they were like acts of war, so they didn't have to pay out. They're all very bad, absolutely seismic events. This was arguably bigger, at least in some sort of ways, and it knocked out something like 8.5 million Windows machines. And I mean, Jason, you mentioned the airports, but again, UK hospitals were impacted by this again, and they had already just recovered from like a bunch of ransomware attacks as well, and it's still having impact as of Monday, and we're recording this on Tuesday. I saw a bunch of tweets from people inside various airports, and there's still disruption to Delta Airlines specifically. Like, people can't get home, people can't fly because of a faulty update. And then there was a tweet from Pete. Oh my god, I'm getting
Buttigieg,
Mayor
Thank you.
Pete. Okay, and he has said that the
Vice President Pete.
Not yet, because obviously he's the Secretary of Transportation, and he says that the Department of Transportation has opened an investigation into Delta to make sure that they're correctly refunding people for all of this, because it really looks like this CrowdStrike outage really dramatically impacted Delta specifically. So to talk about a little bit more what happened, yes, CrowdStrike, this piece of software that runs on all these machines, is updated constantly, and it gets some sort of update that causes a kernel panic, the kernel being sort of the center of the operating system almost, or maybe the deepest layer, I guess you could say as well. And when you have very powerful software running inside or alongside the kernel, because it has to be able to monitor what's going on the computer to provide the security benefits, that also means if something goes wrong, it can be catastrophic. And it's not just like, oh, I need to restart the program. It's like it locks down my machine, basically. And that's what happened here with the blue screens of death everywhere. Jason, Microsoft then started to put out during the day some advice for people who had their Azure servers, which is Microsoft's sort of equivalent of AWS and DigitalOcean, that sort of thing. They had some advice on how to get out of a blue screen of death on those servers. What were they recommending people do?
I mean, they basically did the world's biggest did you try turning it off and turning it back on, which I thought was really funny. I think a lot of people thought was funny. Basically, Microsoft puts out this security update. They're updating this website every 90 seconds, literally. Like, that's how bad this situation was, that Microsoft was like, we are just going to constantly be updating this with information about how to recover your system or, get this off. And basically they said, quote, we have received reports of successful recovery from some customers attempting multiple virtual machine restart operations on affected virtual machines. Customers can attempt to do so as follows. And then it says, we have received feedback from customers that several reboots, as many as 15 have been reported, may be required. But overall feedback is that reboots are an effective troubleshooting step at this stage. So they basically said, like, try turning it off and turning it back on, but try that 15 times in a row.
Yeah.
And it's unclear like how they determined this. And I think it was at the point in the, problem where Microsoft was telling people anything that was working at that point, because it wasn't exactly clear how to recover from this at that point.
Yeah, and crucially, again, as you say, this applied to people running virtual machines. This is not a desktop Windows computer like Emmanuel might use or something. It is specifically for people running servers or something like that, which is great if you can remotely reboot the machine 15 times. You can't do that for the vast majority of desktop Windows systems. It's going to involve the IT team of Delta or a UK hospital or whatever physically going to the machine and then doing whatever the fix was. And the actual fix, rather than that virtual machine one, the actual fix was they had to boot the Windows machine into safe mode. They had to locate the specific CrowdStrike related file that contained the faulty update, delete that file, and then I think restart the machine again. And that actually sounds like pretty straightforward. Oh, okay, you just go and delete the file and reboot, whatever. Yeah, but if you're a system administrator at a hospital or a media organization, because we got a leaked photo outside of News Corp as well, right? And that's all bunch of media organizations. That is going to be a ton of work for the IT teams and the information security teams, and it's going to take them a very, very long time. And I think companies are obviously still dealing with this as well. So as the day progresses, the CrowdStrike of CEO, oh my god, the
That's
CEO of CrowdStrike. It's because I'm trying to remember his name at the same time while I'm doing that, and my mind's getting ahead of me. It's Greg Kurtz, I think.
George Kurtz.
Oh my god!
Close.
It's the one bit of info I did not put in the Google document. All right.
Well, this is the helpful thing, is that if you're watching this on YouTube, we have the article up now, and so I can read directly from it. Joseph can't see it while I'm doing it,
No.
but you'll see it's George Kurtz.
Unfair advantage. Anyway, as the day progressed, he, in a smart way, is posting these constant updates to customers and the wider world as well, for everybody who's being impacted by it. And the first statement was, we've identified the issue, a fix has been pushed, here's what you can do, blah, blah, blah. And then the company published a second statement, part of which I'm just going to read here, which is, quote, today was not a security or cyber incident. Our customers remain fully protected. We understand the gravity of the situation and are deeply sorry for the inconvenience and disruption. End quote. It's just crazy that possibly the biggest outage in the internet's history is met with, we're sorry for the inconvenience caused. That's like a statement that ironically an airline would give if a flight got cancelled or something. It's like, I feel like you're undercutting the situation by using those terms.
I mean, I think that's fair, but I guess I saw him go on, I don't know what TV channel it was. I'm sure he went on a lot, but he went on like CNN, CNBC, et cetera, et cetera. And it's hard to feel sorry for big CEOs of gigantic publicly traded companies, but he really was like oops, just couldn't find his words. I felt very bad for him, I guess I would say. And it's I don't know what the fallout from this is going to be. It's like there's going to be congressional hearings, so on and so forth. And I really wonder if they're going to try to sweep this under the bus and just say like, an engineer did a bad job and we fired the engineer responsible for, quality testing this version that we pushed, or if they're going to say this was a systemic failure of our entire company and the sort of like knock-on ramifications were terrible. I think it's worth mentioning that George Kurtz was one of the people who early in the pandemic sort of like led the way on layoffs. Like CrowdStrike had pretty big layoffs before a lot of tech companies did. And then he was like, wow, we should have done that a lot earlier. Like a lot of companies hired up a lot during the pandemic, and then many tech companies cut back and had these rounds of layoffs. And he was like, oh, we should have done those layoffs way earlier. And it's hard to say, like, if they hadn't done those layoffs, maybe they would have had the QA people to catch something like this. But
Right.
It's pretty astonishing that this happened, I guess.
Yeah, and you mentioned congressional hearings, and absolutely, less than 24 hours ago, here's a piece from the AP. Oh my God, there's a pop-up on the AP's website. Please go away. CrowdStrike CEO called to testify to Congress over cybersecurity firm's role in global tech outage. So, I mean, I'm absolutely going to watch that to see how that develops. And then we did one other article about it, because here's the thing, right? I mean, obviously, we basically only do original reporting. Sometimes we'll cover research, but like I feel like it's relatively rare. Like the research has to be really good. Most of the time it's us doing our own pieces. And when there is a major news event like this, it's like, so what do we do? Like we don't want to do what everybody else is doing, because what's the point? We're running our own outlet to do our own thing. So I was thinking, is there a way to find out how this has impacted government agencies? So I went into US procurement databases, like I do for a ton of different stories, and I'm just searching for listings related to CrowdStrike purchases. And there's all these agencies that come up: State Department, Army, Navy, I think, FBI, the CDC, I think Department of Agriculture or something, like an absolute ton of agencies. And then I pinged them all one by one, and a fair few of them, I think 4 or 5 in the end, came back and they said either that yes, their systems were disrupted themselves, or which was the case of the IRS, and they said they briefly solved it, but IRS systems were disrupted. I saw some people joking on Twitter after our article. It's like, hey, quick, the taxman systems are down. Do some crimes or something. I would not recommend that. So there's that. And then some other agencies were just acknowledging that like they were dealing with the impact of the disruption. So maybe I think it was the Department of Energy was like, yes, we're dealing with state and local and federal agencies and trying to get them up. And then, there was a good piece from State Scoop as well, which is much more of a trade publication. But if you're interested in sort of the real gritty details, they're always worth reading, as well as Cyberscoop. And they reported that, yes, many city government services were disrupted by this outage. I guess just to round out this section of the show, Jason, what do you think this says about the resiliency of the internet and sort of what this outage shows us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of politicians and just tech people have said, the internet and all of these services, our airlines, our hospitals, so on and so forth, has come to rely like extremely on these gigantic companies. CrowdStrike is one that plugs into a lot of other services, but we would see a similar terrible outcome if like Azure went down or if AWS went down. And I think that there were a lot of good memes circulating where it's like this very complicated structure, and then the single like load bearing block is CrowdStrike in this instance. And it's like all of these companies are using CrowdStrike because they want to prevent cyber attacks, but I think that this shows that it shows that like one misstep can have these very far-reaching ramifications. It's like we still don't know how this software update got pushed in this way, but it was probably a mistake by several people, and the outcome is very, very negative. And I think that there's going to be, as you said, like a search for accountability from how did it come to be that CrowdStrike is responsible for keeping all of these systems online. And not that CrowdStrike itself is responsible for keeping them online, but CrowdStrike, if something goes wrong, can lead to all of these negative outcomes. I think that there was a really good article by The Lever, which is an independent like accountability publication, about Microsoft sort of lobbying against further regulation of just sort of like what they were doing, like antitrust type lobbying. And I thought that was an interesting piece. I just think that it shows how the centralization and all of these like mergers that we've seen over the course of many years, like so much of our internet infrastructure is in the hands of just a few companies.
Yeah, and I mean, CrowdStrike is a massively popular tool because I just think it's worth saying it's apparently pretty good at what it does normally. Like, people buy it because apparently it's a very good product with a very strong research team behind it. You know, that being said, with all of that popularity, you're going to be responsible for many, many more systems, and you're not necessarily responsible for the uptime, but you are responsible for the downtime, of course. But that being said, I mean, CrowdStrike also has a reputation for its rather cringy PR, unfortunately, where you'll go to the hacking conferences and they'll have the big statues of like Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear, because of course this is actually where those terms came from, because CrowdStrike is the company that invented those, as far as I can remember, right? It was way back in 2016 when the DNC got hacked. It was CrowdStrike that was there responding to it. And I don't think we need to get into it, but that's also playing into some of the conspiracy theories around, oh my god, this was done to cover up the Trump assassination and wipe. Shut up. Okay, whatever. Anyway,
one thing very quickly, but I know we're ending this segment. CrowdStrike's stock was down like 30% Friday when this was happening, and it's still down 25%, but it's like up a few percent today. And we talked about this AT&T hack last week. It's like, this is going to keep happening until there are like actual consequences for when companies screw up like this. It's like if there is a small dip in their stock price and then it just goes back, everything goes back to normal, like nothing is going to change.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll leave that there and we'll keep an eye on it. But after the break, we're going to talk about how Sam tried to vape the internet. We'll be right back after this.
When we launched 404 Media, I knew we wanted to sell merch, but I had no idea how to set up a store. Then I found Shopify, and now you can buy those beautiful green hats that we made. Setting up and managing our store was so easy because we use Shopify. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business, from the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're delivering daily digests or serving sensational scoops, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, up to 36% better compared to the other leading commerce platforms. And you can sell more with less, thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify integrates with every other software we use, meaning I can seamlessly print shipping labels, track orders, and manage our entire 404 Media store from just one platform. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US, and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Check out Shopify.com to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com.
All right, and we are back. So, Sam, this story is called I Try to Vape the Internet, and I'm looking at the art, and it's some sort of device you're holding in your hand with a screen with some app icons on it, and presumably somewhere where you put your mouth onto the device. Could you just explain what this device is exactly? Oh, and you've just held it up as well.
Yes, I have it. I have it with us. Let's see if I can get the crackle in the mic. Nope.
Wow.
I feel like I heard it
Be quiet.
You're not hitting it hard enough.
Yeah,
hit
hit
it
it
for real.
harder.
Oh, come on. You guys are going to fuck me up. All right, hang on. Too smooth.
It's too damn good.
Children don't
This
watch
is nicotine, just so you know. This is nicotine. This is not weed. Also, yeah, I don't smoke. I don't vape. So the next 45 minutes is going to be a fun podcast for me.
Wow, that's dedication. Like, you don't even vape. You're like, I'm going to go out and vape.
Yeah, I mean, like many of my dumbest ideas / blogs, I saw a viral tweet of a really stupid product made in China and had to have it. Yeah, it was a tweet of someone saying that they had Twitter on their vape and showed that specific vape, which is just like a vape with a screen on it. And people were freaking out, and they were like, "Oh my god! Like you can tweet from your vape," which obviously would be absurd and ridiculous. And that's not quite what this lets you do, but pretty damn close. You and I tested it a little bit.
Situation where you had to like go through the entire alphabet by just like hitting it. So to get to like the letter Z, you would have to do it 26 times.
Like a rotary phone,
Yeah, same. I think everyone was kind of imagining like, oh, I can browse the internet on a vape, because the screen is kind of big. Like, I guess for people listening, like the whole thing is maybe a little bit smaller than a credit card, and the screen is most of the vape. So yeah, it seems like there's a lot of real estate here to put stuff on, and they've definitely put stuff on it, but not the whole internet.
So there's this device, yes, small as you say, and then you can vape as you've demonstrated as well. And it has these app icons. So, well, what is it doing exactly? How are you able to access the internet somewhat on this device?
So it's basically like a smartwatch, like a really simple smartwatch from many years ago. I've had smartwatches that are exactly like this. It just connects to your phone via Bluetooth, and then what you're getting through those icons are notifications. So like if you have like push notifications on for like every tweet from like 44 Media, you'll get every tweet from 44 Media on your screen technically. But you know, I have no notifications on my phone at all. So at least for Twitter. So I'm like, you know, messing with this thing for like half a day, trying to get it set up when I first got it, trying to like navigate the weird, like translated app that you have to install with it. Was pretty sure I was downloading some kind of like malware onto my phone or giving this vape some kind of malicious access to my stuff.
Backdoor
Yeah, that would be literally up in smoke.
Well, you mentioned some sort of app you had to install, and I think you had to translate it. Well, what language was it in, and how did you go about actually ordering this?
I mean, the whole thing, like it's made in China. It was shipped from, I think, I want to say Illinois, but the app was made in Shenzhen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just these like really over the top kind of ridiculous vapes that have been pumped out into the market, into the American like consumer market in the last couple of years to kind of fill the Juul hole,
Right.
the void left behind.
Right.
Yeah, because Juul was banned. And now what we get are these like endlessly ridiculous and more complicated apps coming in from China, like exported and then sold by these random websites called like General Vape, which is where I got mine. There are a bunch. But yeah, it came in like 3 days though. So I was pretty impressed. Speedy service.
We love general vape. Go ahead, Jason.
Sam, the box says that it has an eco mode, a normal mode, and a boost mode, and it says like 30K eco mode, 25K normal mode, and 20K boost mode. Is that like amount of nicotine being delivered?
I have no idea. It's like there. So the screen where it gives you that option says 12W, 18W, and 25W.
So
what do you think
watts.
that is?
It's watts.
Is it?
It's like
is it watts?
Yeah, that is what it is. It's like how hot it burns the nicotine juice.
It's fucking sick.
Like higher wattage will lead to like more nicotine, I believe.
Okay.
So
I thought it was like weeks, and I was like, oh, it'll last me 25 weeks.
That's
I thought it was
so
timing.
wild that it has
normal.
That it has like eco-friendly mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, don't worry about it. I've put the Twitter vape into eco mode. We're all going to be okay.
It's in sport mode most of the time.
I see. Well, you mentioned that like, look, obviously this is a very, very funny piece, but it does come with a little bit of context. You mentioned that in the jewel hole, as we're describing it, all of these other vapes have appeared. What's the deal with these other vapes? Is there like this weird ass industry of just like, let's make the craziest vape now, and like what are some of those apart from this one, obviously?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. This is reporting that our dear friend Louise at Wired had done just like a week before I got the vape in the mail, talking about just like the market of vapes coming in from China and being developed in China, and how the ones like this, my little swipe vape, they're just like in a race to be the ones that everyone buys in America. So what you get is like people are like, oh, let's put more and more bells and whistles on it. Like this does like tracking your run, tracking your walk, all of your movement, has little games in it. It has a calculator, which I think is great. It does like find your phone. Like it has like a lot of functionality in it. And I think people just like these sellers just want you to only carry the vape around and for it to be like this essential part of your like daily loadout essentially. So, even though it can't replace your phone, I think they're all looking to replace that kind of like daily addiction that we have to these little screens, these little devices. So, but yeah, that's the gist of it, is like they're racing to be the next Juul and for them to be like, as viral and as popular as possible.
I mean,
as long as it just was Juul on the market here.
You said it had a calculator. My iPad doesn't even have a calculator. The iPad does not come with a calculator app. I have to Google calc every time I fucking want to do addition or multiplication on my iPad. So it's actually
they announced the calculator app. Have they not released it yet? It's not out yet. Still in dev.
I don't think it's out yet. I think it will be September with the new version of iPad OS. And
top minds are on the case.
Dude, soon you'll be able to blog from the vape, so don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I probably will write about the calculator app when they finally release it. Are people actually buying this Twitter vape thing? Are people?
I don't know.
Buying
I can imagine so. Like it got so popular, and I think people probably were like, "I want this novel thing." A lot of the flavors were sold out, but they were sold out before I bought mine, so maybe they just are always sold out. There was one flavor called "fucking fab," which I really need to know what that tastes like. Maybe they're putting something else in that one, but yeah, there are a couple sold out, but it's like, it's one of like many, 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 like dozens, thousands of vapes. So, they're just churning them out.
Some of this is in the Wired article that just sort of explains, like the FDA banned Juul, the little USB drives that you vape, which is developed by a US company. And now there's just been the flood of all of these like new gadgetized vapes, and it's bad and people buy them. But if you look at things like teen vaping rates, they have gone down significantly since Juul was on top. So on some level it's working, but on another level, like the vapes that are being sold now are way more addictive, way more gamified, and like pretty terrifying. from a
way more
public
cool.
health, from a public health perspective. But yeah,
It's also just like eco trash. Like, this is garbage. It's a battery with a screen on it that's disposable. Like, it's just, this is going to go straight into the landfill, which is a whole other story. But we didn't touch on that in my blog. But yeah, it's like Juuls were already a huge problem. Like, Juul pods were just everywhere. Like, the streets of Bushwick were littered with Juul pods. And now I wonder how many of these are just going to be like filling up landfills, where it's just like these huge cases with a battery and a screen where they just are here forever.
Liquid nicotine is also toxic, so it's even harder to recycle them, which was something that came up at a recycling conference I went to a year ago, and I never ended up writing about it, but like electronic recyclers can't really handle this stuff. Even if you are responsible about what happens to it, they're like not equipped to deal with it because it's technically a hazardous material. It's a toxic material. You need like a special certification to be able to deal with it.
I think just last question, Sam, just on the eco thing. So what is it made out of? Because it sounds like you can't replace the cartridge, right? You just buy it, you consume it, you throw it away. What's it made out of? Is it like a plastic case with then the LCD screen? Like, can you roughly tell just what it's made out of? I'm just wondering what's getting thrown away.
Let me open the product page and see if it says. I mean, it's just plastic as far as I can tell. And then
crappy, shitty plastic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the page doesn't say, of course, it's not going to go into that much detail probably, but like, yeah, it's just like, it feels like a Tamagotchi. Like, that kind of, it's what it reminds me of.
Is there one with a Tamagotchi? There must be.
I would love that, honestly. Now that we've talked about how bad these are for the environment, I'm like, I would buy.
Give me one that's in the shape of those memory cards for the Sega Dreamcast that you can put into a controller, so I could play Dreamcast, and you just get it out, you take your vape, and you put it back in. Okay, write that down, man. We
just free ideas here on this podcast.
Yeah. If someone makes that, let me know. All right, we'll leave that there. If you're listening to the free version of the podcast, I will now play us out, or rather, Jason will. But if you're a subscriber, we're going to talk about some leaked documents we got, which show what phones Celebrate can and can't unlock. You can subscribe and gain access to that content at 404media.co. We'll be right back after this.